Weather was really average on this day, and there wasn't a lot of options of where we could go and where we'd find shelter. But we still headed out in the boat. It's sort of late morning, headed out at about 10 AM, something like that. The water looked alright from the surface. As you can look down here, we're in probably 13, 14 metres and it looks not too bad. But I do find that often you've got that clear water on the surface and it's just progressively gets worse as further down we get. I've anchored the boat up current from where I actually want to dive, and I want to drift down in the current along the weed edge and then head into the shallows and dive the shallows all the way back to the boat, just so we can get a bigger diversity of fish. Make my way into the current and hit right on the weed edge here. Maybe it's about 20 metres, I can just make out the edge of it. With the viz fading, the deeper I went towards the bottom, it just pays to go really slowly so I can have a look around to make sure I land in the right spot. This is the reason why I've just swum straight over the top of that boarfish there. Gliding towards it wants absolutely nothing to do with me. Then off to my right there's another one, even bigger. I'm going to try and go over the top of the kelp here and use it as cover to sneak over and close the gap. Doesn't seem to be too spooked, it's just cruising along the edge. Here I nearly get my gun tangled in the weed, which would have been stupid. It's a nice big one, this, and it lets me get nice and close. Most of the time when you're approaching something like a boarfish, or fish in general really, you do want to approach them from above. This was not an ideal situation as I was already on the bottom, whereas if I spotted this from higher up, I would have tried to get on top of it. This was the very first dive too, so it was a good start. We don't plan on being out too long today, as the weather's going to worsen throughout the day and we just want to get home. Remember with boarfish, you see them icking here, not right up high on its bump, just behind the eye there, that's where their brain is. It's a nice sized fish, maybe around 5 kilos, something like that. Straight into my Wettie float boat. As always, I don't want to attract any unwanted predators. It also makes it nice and easy to tow. We've slowly been finning in the current to stay on the same spot. I'm just going to grab the drop weight off Sophie so she can have a dive. Back down in the same spot, as it seemed to be a little bit of a hub with all sorts of fish there. Boarfish will often be in the most fishy spot on a weed edge. Same approach as last time, as there could still be another boarfish here somewhere, or a John Dory, something that I might have not seen before. I'm having a look for crays too, because I want to get a crayfish today. Watching out to sea, I spot a couple of trevally coming in. That'll be a perfect next addition to the float boat. Some of the best sashimi around, and also pretty good cooked as well if you have them fresh. But always make sure you bleed these pelagic fish. When weed edges get really steep like this is a steep vertical wall down towards the sand, it's often not that great for fish. You might get the odd snapper hiding in the weed here, but a lot of our weed edge species don't tend to like it so much. But as mentioned, I want to get a crayfish, and I have got crayfish along here before, as these steep walls have really nice slots in them, or cracks. Perfect spot for a crayfish to come up, out off the sand and into a hole somewhere. As you can see, it's pretty lifeless, just a few red moki. Promising looking spot, and I know if I find a nice slot here somewhere, I'm sure there's going to be a crayfish in it. Jackpot. There's two half decent crays sitting in a nice crack there. Probably pay to grab this closest one so I don't miss it. I wouldn't say I'm the best cray catcher in the world. These are good looking cracks here, and there's no doubt going to be a few more, but that's fine. I'll leave that other one there. If you find a crayfish crack that has a few crays in it, it does pay to leave a few in there, so other crays will be welcome to go in there with the other ones. If you take all the crays out, especially the biggest one, often the crays won't return to that hole. We got to the end of the weed edge here, and it looked like sort of a nothing spot, but I spotted this kingfish swimming around, so made a quick dive. See how it comes whizzing in here? It's all excited about something. And then I also spot there's another nice boarfish right in the bottom there. And since I've already got one, I'm trying to call Sophie down to come and try and get it. I don't want to return to the surface, as at this level I can see it. From the surface you can't actually see the boarfish in the bottom. If I go back to the surface, no doubt I'd lose where it is. So I'm just trying to ghost it from above so I don't spook it, but it is getting a little bit worried, especially with that kingfish going ballistic everywhere. Unfortunately, me and Sophie's communication isn't great between halfway down and the surface. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. She realises it's a boarfish when she gets halfway down, but she's approached it from the wrong angle, which is no fault of her own, but of course I knew where it was, so it seemed easy to me. Grabbed the drop weight so it doesn't drift away, and I spotted a turtle as well, swimming out on the sand. Unfortunately the boarfish spooked, but I'm going to head back down and see if I can find that turtle again to try and get some footage. It's amazing, every single year I seem to see more and more turtles, and not always in summertime too. I've seen a few in winter time, which obviously get stuck here. Everywhere along this weed edge there was just clouds of little trevally and little snapper, which is always great to see. Thousands and thousands of them. Every single dive we made we'd see lots of small trevally and lots of little snapper. Very common in this area. I soon realised out on the sand there that's not actually a rock, that's that turtle again. Got a little bit of oxygen, so I'm just going to whiz over to it to get a closer inspection. Apparently the turtle doesn't like me too much. We're into the shallows to try and get some snapper and maybe another crayfish or so. And I swim past and I actually spot the small snapper that's on the other side of the rock here, as I was coming from the wrong way, but I didn't have a lot of choice, just the angle in which I had to swim back to the boat. I try to get this nice big boulder in the way so I can get some cover to sneak up on it. I think I know about where it is. There it is. Since it's only a small snapper, maybe 35 centimeters or so, I'm going to scale it up and going to eat this whole. Often I do this with small snapper, especially when I'm not sure what other fish I might end up with. Whole fish are always nice to eat. Pick up my drop weight that anchors my float boat, and I can continue on. This was a generally nice looking area for crays, plenty of kelp, lots of variation in height at the bottom, which means there's going to be good cracks and holes and whatnot. So I'm just shooting down here. I've got my drop weight clipped to my unloaded spear gun, as I'm going to leave my spear gun on the bottom so I can navigate through the kelp. Nice looking underhang here, and there's some more crayfish. Another lucky grab, and I've got another one. This one is slightly bigger. Grab my spear gun and head back to the surface. Same as the other scenario, I'm just going to leave the other crays that were in that hole, as two's enough for me. Put that one in the float boat as well. Clipping my spear gun back on. I'm just going to add a bit of diversity to the catch. Always try and eat all sorts of different species we see when we're diving. I love eating kinner, and also these here, the spiral shells that you find on the rock. They're a bit like eating, well, actually very, very similar to eating paua. It's kind of Auckland's poor version of paua. You see lots and lots of these at various islands. There's not a huge amount of meat in each of them, but there are a lot of them. Normally I just blanch them in water for a couple of minutes until they die, and then you're able to pick out the eye or the meat in the shell there and then fry them. They're actually really, really nice. I need a bit more practice to try and get them a little bit more tender, but I enjoy the taste. Since I eat seafood probably 4 or 5 times a week, it is nice to get a variation of different types of shellfish and fish to keep things interesting. Back at the boat, have a bit of an inspection of our catch, and I've got to go pick up Sophie as she's kept heading along the coast. Cray's got that small snapper from earlier. I've got my spiral shells. That nice big boarfish from the very beginning of the dive. Another crayfish. And sashimi for tonight. Wash all that blood and stuff out of the float boat as well. We didn't have a lot of options where to go after this, as there was boats everywhere and the wind was blowing pretty hard. So we didn't move very far and had to get back in the shallows and had a short bit of coast to work off. Sophie headed along the coast, and I said I'd just make a couple of ground baits next to the boat as I saw a few snapper. So I broke open a handful of kinner and left them for maybe 5-10 minutes. Came back and sure enough there's a few snapper on it. Nothing big, but just that good pan size like before. When approaching a ground bait like this, especially the small fish, we want to make sure I'm weighted nicely and wait for a good opportune moment, wait for the snapper to turn how I want it to turn before making my lunge. I identify the slightly bigger one there and take an easy shot. Snapper certainly is really hard to beat eating wise. You can have it so many different ways and it lasts well in the fridge. I made another ground bait as well in the shallows, not far from that other one, as I figured I just need to get one sort of small to medium sized snapper off each one. Right up in shallow again and just broke and open a handful of kinner. Oh, there's another one there too. Poor old Spears had a bit of a hiding today, shooting snapper into rocks. When you're diving right up in shallow like this, especially when there's a bit of surge like there is, make sure you have a reasonable amount of weight on your weight belt. It'll make your approach so much easier. I picked up Sophie, as she said there was lots of good snapper just sitting above this flat kelpie area. She thought they were feeding on a dead stingray on the bottom, and she managed to nail a nice one. I thought, oh, this is interesting, I'll go film this dead stingray. And at first it did look like it was dead, it looked like it had a hard time, whether it's being chased by orcas or unfortunately it's been caught on a fishing rod. It was certainly moving a lot for a dead stingray. Soon became apparent that it wasn't dead when it swam off. So I'm not sure what the snapper were doing. Maybe they were just interested in the stingray like we were. At that point we had more than enough fish, so we jumped back in the boat and headed home. A short but very successful day.